The Stubby SMG. The engineer's weapon with a very electric personality. If you want to know how this weapon truly works and what overclocks it has in its arsenal, then you've come to the right place. What's up guys, Jay here and welcome back to another weapon guide video. If you are new to the series, here we go into more detail about the playstyle, mechanics, and overclocks of each individual weapon, and then I proceed to tell you that that weapon is the best, and people in the comments get confused as to how I can say that about all the weapons since they don't seem to understand how theming a series works. In any event, we have covered many weapons in this series so far, and this time we're going to cover the last of the engineer's primary arsenal with the Stubby Voltaic SMG. So if you guys are ready, let's talk about the SMG and the kinds of overclocks it has access to so you could see if it's the primary weapon to add to your build. By the way, if you like this video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another upload.
Time for a cold one once this is done.
So as is tradition, before we go into the finer details, we need to make sure that we have a decent understanding of the SMG at a basic level. The SMG is the second primary weapon the engineer has access to, so you won't have to put too much time into the engineer in order to unlock it. However, by that point, you will have a good understanding of the engineer's kit in order to figure out how this thing fits into your weapon setup. The Stubby Voltaic SMG is a tiny, compact, heavily augmented submachine gun, and is, at least in my opinion, one of the more interesting options to use in the engineer's arsenal. It has a strong rate of fire and also comes equipped with pre-built electrical features. By default, every shot fired has a 25% chance to electrocute the target, damaging them over time while also slowing their movement. The Stubby is a unique option to use and is the only option for the engineer that is truly fully automatic without having an external feature to keep track of, like the Loki rifle's smart targeting. As such, it may be a more comfortable option for players who have a hard time adjusting to the engineer's weapon options. If you want to channel your inner Shocker from Spider-Man, then the Stubby might be the weapon option for you.
Turrets and explosions. You've come to the right place, mate.
Now we are moving over to the overclocks themselves. While the Stubby does not have too many fancy factors on its own, aside from its electrocution, its overclocks augment it vastly, giving it many different options for setups. Currently, as of Season 4, the Stubby has 6 overclocks with a balanced split of 2 for each category. Next, as always, we'll go through each of them and talk about what they can do and how you can use them effectively. So with that, let's start with the clean overclocks, and our first option is super slim rounds. The description reads, same power but in a smaller package, giving slightly better accuracy and letting you fit a few more rounds in each magazine. So as is custom in this series, every weapon has at least one clean overclock for some kind of ammo efficiency, and that's what we have here. In the case of super slim rounds, we have an increase to magazine size by 5 rounds and an improvement to the base spread by 20%. As I always say, these kinds of overclocks are pretty much always a good choice if you don't have any real build setup in mind or are just trying to get used to the weapon in question. Simply put, this is a good, safe option that is pretty standard for what we know so far. The other option for clean overclocks is well-oiled machine. This one reads very simply, when you need a little more sustained damage. This one helps to improve your damage output in a very direct way by giving you more rate of fire and a faster reload. Specifically, it gives you +2 to your rate of fire and reduces your reload time by 0.2 seconds. This is another pretty simple overclock that helps you improve your damage without any drawback. While the reload time increase is not extremely noticeable, the rate of fire boost can be very effective when running a very electrocution-focused build. Outside of that, there isn't really a whole lot to mention regarding this overclock, and it's just a very safe DPS option. Moving over to the balanced overclocks, first we have the EM Refire Booster. This one reads, use the electron circuit of the SMG to boost its fire rate and damage, but the accuracy suffers as a result. Now here we have one that is a little bit more interesting, playing into the Stubby's unique effects by increasing the amount of electric damage that you can do. Going through the numbers, we get a +2 increase in electric damage and a +4 to the rate of fire. To compensate, the base spread is increased by 50%. So here we get a taste of the kinds of build setup capabilities the Stubby can use. The increase to electric damage is really effective if you are leaning heavily into the Stubby's shocking power. Pairing this with things like conductive bullets in tier 4 and electric arc in tier 5 can help you both spread electricity very wide, as well as deal insane amounts of damage to those electrified enemies. However, you do need to play a lot closer to the enemies due to the increased base spread, making the weapon even more of a close quarters weapon than it already is. Still, if you don't mind that factor and it can stay safe while being close to the enemies, then this overclock can do some pretty considerable damage. The other balanced overclock we have is lightweight rounds. The description says, they don't hit quite as hard and can't handle fast fire rates, but you sure can carry a lot more of them. Well, that pretty much sums up the overclock better than anything, and it's probably one of the simplest balanced overclocks we have in the game. It sacrifices damage and rate of fire for a lot more ammo. To be specific, it gives you 180 to your maximum ammo reserves at the cost of -1 to your reload and -2 to your rate of fire. Honestly, this overclock is pretty solid and is usually the go-to that I tend to use most of the time when running this thing without any kind of build setup in mind. Although your damage output is decreased, only 1 point of damage for this particular weapon doesn't really hinder you too much. The best way to use this overclock is to again lean very heavily into the electrocution route since you have so much more ammo to achieve this. Basically, you will turn this thing into a crowd control machine and lock down entire swarms, using mods like upgraded capacitors, conductive bullets, and electric arc for mass zapping powers. You may not exactly be eliminating many bugs, but you will keep them all locked down and helpless while your Bullets of Mercy Scout or Face Melter Driller turns them into Swiss cheese or piles of ashes. Next up is the unstable overclocks. The first one for the Stubby is the turret arc. The description reads, use the Gemini turrets as nodes in an electric arc. Zap! The downside is less ammo and a slower rate of fire. So this overclock is one of the very few that require a specific upgrade for your equipment in order to use to its full effectiveness. First, going through the bonuses themselves, it adds the actual turret arc ability to the weapon at the cost of -120 to your maximum ammo and -2 to your rate of fire. So let's go through exactly what the turret arc does. Essentially what happens is you electrically charge a sentry gun whenever you hit it with a shot that would normally electrocute an enemy. Charged sentry guns electrocute anything in a 2-meter area around it, damaging and slowing them. If 2 or more sentries within a 15-meter radius are charged, they will also create an electrical arc between them, applying the same damage to anything caught in between them and slow effects to the creatures as well. So in simple terms, shoot bullets at a sentry gun and it becomes an electrical node that you can chain together to create an electric fence of sorts. This can be really good in certain mission types where you have to defend for long periods of time, like escort or salvage missions. You can set up a line to protect whatever you want from fast advancing bugs. What's funny about this is if you have multiple engineers on your team, you can actually charge their turrets as well. While it may not be as direct and straightforward as a shotgun's turret whip shot, you can still defend an extremely wide area effectively if your turrets are well placed. The last unstable overclock option is Turret EM Discharge. This one reads, shoot the turret to turn it into the epicenter of an electric explosion. The bullet modifications unfortunately also lower the direct damage and electrocution chance. So this overclock is very similar to the last one in terms of how to activate it, that being you shoot your turret. However, the effect is very different. First, talking about the normal stat changes, we have the addition of the turret EM discharge ability, compensated by a -5 to the magazine size and -2 to overall damage. So this overclock lets you turn your sentry gun into a supercharged shock grenade. Talking about the EM discharge itself, it triggers an electrical explosion around a sentry gun whenever it is hit by a bullet that would normally electrocute an enemy, similar to the turret arc. So think of this thing like the shotgun's turret whip mod, except instead of firing a powerful shot from the sentry, it becomes a powerful blast itself and damages everything nearby. In terms of application to missions, this can definitely help take some of the pressure off of you. However, sometimes it can be a little awkward to use in my experience because you want the bugs to be near your turret. However, you also should be near your turret to reload it, and it can sometimes make for very weird positions where you have a hard time dealing with swarms. That being said, it can still be a blast to use, pun intended, and if you have multiple turrets, you can essentially set them up like landmines for swarms to have to go through. And as well as the last one, if you fire at an allied turret, you can also use them as well. If you can set up properly and have good positions, then this overclock can be a destructive one to say the least.
Identify targets and exterminate. That's how it's done.
So now that we have gone over all of these overclocks, just how can we apply them to our build? Well, when it comes to the Stubby, there are essentially 2 ways you can go. Either the electric zap everything route with things like the EM discharge, the turret arc, or even the refire booster, or the bullet hose route where you just fling as many bullets as you can with things like well-oiled machine and lightweight rounds. It's important to keep in mind that the Stubby does not do a lot of damage on its own. Instead, it is meant to complement and amplify the effects of other pieces of the engineer's kit. It's meant to work in tandem with things like your sentries and throwables to create powerful combinations. If you can get behind that playstyle, then you will understand in no time how the Stubby SMG is the engineer's strongest weapon. Well, that covers the Stubby SMG and the overclocks it has access to, and how you can use them to great effect. Now you can decide if the Stubby is the right primary weapon to add to your build. If you guys like this and want to see more videos covering weapon overclocks, let me know down below. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like because it tells me what types of videos you guys want to see. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.